We really put a big emphasis on health, comfort, and durability. You can say that you're doing all these high performance details, but how are you proving that? Most builders now are building by feel. They're not building by hard data numbers. You can have the best HVAC system in the world, but if you have a terrible enclosure, it's not going to do anything for you. To me, building science is just applying obvious solutions in a manner that makes sense to you in your market area. Focus on the forever details, and then if you want to, I can come out here every other week and change these countertops, change these light fixtures out, and it would have no effect on like your overall well-being. It'd be annoying that I'm in your house, but if I have to come in and like tear out a window, that's a big deal.
Welcome back to the Your Project Shepherd podcast. I am your host, Curtis Lawson, and most of us in this industry, the construction industry, learned by watching someone else do it. Heck, that's how I learned how to do it. And a lot of what we were taught and what we observed did work at the time, right? But today, homes are built tighter, codes have changed, materials and how those materials are installed, all that has evolved. And because the cost of building new homes, custom homes, keeps going up, client expectations also get higher and higher along with that price point. So all that means that the stakes have gotten higher for us as builders. Luxury should not be defined just as beautiful finishes. Our homes also have to perform, they have to be comfortable, and they have to provide us and contribute to our health and wellness and safety as well. So today I'm talking to my friend Matthew Davis. Matthew's from Kingsmen Homes here in the Houston area. He's a friend of mine who's also on the GHBA Custom Builders Council board with me as of this year. And he is he's a custom builder based kind of actually outside of Houston, but
Yep.
we'll say the Houston region. So Matthew, first of all, welcome. Give us a quick one or two sentence intro on who Kingsmen Homes is and what you're all about.
Yeah, so Kingsman Homes is a custom home building remodeling company. We're based out of like way west Houston, so Sealy area. So we primarily service Austin County, Washington County, some Fort Bend. We don't go into town too much, and we try to really stay in a more rural environment. But Kingsman Homes is a primarily cost plus builder focusing on thoughtful construction and fine craftsmanship. We really put a big emphasis on health, comfort, and durability. So the industry term for that would be high performance. But whenever I'm trying to relate it to a customer, I'm always saying those three things is our focus. So especially on the new construction side, that's really where we put a big emphasis on is high performing, better performing things. And then on remodeling, we just try to do what's right because sometimes your hands are a little bit tied with what is left and you don't necessarily want to tip the bucket too far on a remodel. But that's kind of what we're about and where we're focused on. We're trying to make a shift more into more new construction going forward. The base of our business has primarily been remodeling, but as we continue to grow, we're making that shift onto the more new construction type things because I do get more satisfaction and enjoyment out of the product and the ability for us to implement these new modern technologies into new construction.
Yeah. So let's start off with a little bit of kind of compassion for where the industry's come from, and something that I mentioned in my intro. A lot of these old ways were passed down because they solved problems at the time, and to be honest, maybe the stakes weren't as high back then with the assemblies that are being built, but things have changed. What are a few beliefs that you think builders should update? Not because they were dumb, but just because now we have more information and because now we're trying to build better products.
Yeah, I think some of the beliefs is mostly has to do with the biggest one, in my opinion, is expectation setting with the client. I think that's where the biggest disconnection is from builder to homeowner or end user, however you want to describe it, is the disconnection of expectations. Whether they like it or not, the average like design aspect, strictly speaking from an HVAC standpoint, is like a 20 degree, 25 degree delta outside. And in our market, if it's 100 degrees outside, you take 25 degrees off that's an uncomfortable setting. So a lot of that has to do with expectation setting with the client or homeowner. And that's just not done, whether it be out of laziness or just lack of foresight on the builder's part. For the most part, that expectation needs to be set by the builder. And then just other general building practices of water management is your biggest one. So not only keeping the water out, but giving the water a place to go. That's one thing that I think the industry in our area is really lacking, especially in like my rural setting. We're doing a lot of siding, and they're applying that siding directly to your exterior sheathing. And so if and when that sheathing gets wet, it's just trapped. So that's a big one. And then just lack of ability to adapt to new technologies such as dehumidifiers and ERVs and things of that nature to solve modern day comfort problems.
Yeah. I mean, I think most of it's common sense. I think a lot of builders hear it. They go to seminars, they go to classes, they lunch and learns, they see the products, they hear it, they understand it. But and maybe they say that we're going to build better standards. Like they say, hey, we know the right thing, we're going to do the right thing, and maybe they even spec it out, right? But at the end of the day, it doesn't always happen. It doesn't always execute, right? And I've seen this happen over and over again, where a builder claims, "Oh, we build this amazing high performance home," but in actuality, it's really not that. So it's really just kind of lip service, right?
Yep.
So, like, what's your take on why that happens?
Well, a big part of that too is follow up, right? Trust but verify. So you can say that you're doing all these high performance details, but how are you proving that? What kind of additional testing metrics, data are you applying to that? I would say most builders now are building by feel. They're not building by hard data numbers. So if you're saying I'm building a tight envelope because I'm using spray foam, prove it. What are you doing to prove that you're doing that? Are you doing blower door testing? At what point? Are you doing it at the very end when the house is finished and everything's moved into it? That point is too late. So at what point in construction are you doing that testing to verify the claim that you're making? Are you saying you're building an airtight house just because you're using spray foam? You'd be surprised to see that is not always the case. There's a lot more that goes into that. And if you are, creating a wall assembly that is supposed to let water out, spray it with water. Don't just say, "Oh yeah, we're using this rain screen," and then the water's going to get out somehow. You should test it and verify whether or not it's doing that. I mean, everything from thermal bridging on, get yourself a thermal camera and test and verify how your assemblies are performing, not just claiming how they're going to perform.
Yeah. And some of these things, do cost money, right? Like you're going to pay a company to come out and blower door test, although you could buy your own machine and do it yourself.
We have our own.
But generally speaking, builders are not going to own that equipment. They're going to pay somebody to come do it, right? But things like water testing, literally just roll the water hose out.
Simple.
See what happens, right? Thermal cameras, like you can get a fairly inexpensive thermal camera these days. It's pretty good. It's way better than it was 10 years ago for sure. And you can get a sense of that thermal bridging, right? So some of these things don't necessarily cost much more, if any, money to go ahead and do it, to verify it. I think sometimes we get in a hurry and we're just ready to move that next stage. We get pressure from the client and say, the schedule, we got to move on. And so we just kind of rush through it, and we don't take the time to do that verification.
Yeah, and that's kind of with a better built house. Forget the term high performance, but a better built house, does it take slightly longer? Yes, maybe 5% longer than what a traditionally built house, and it maybe costs 5 to 10% more. But if you're taking the home building from a perspective of 50 years, 100 years, durability standpoint, that water management of that 15 minutes you spent that day spraying that window down with the water hose, when we come back 15 years from now, when we look at that window, it's not going to be leaking water you would want it to fail. Honestly, I would prefer it to fail at that point, because we can then fix it and address it. Because if I didn't catch it then it's going to become a problem later, and it's not going to be right away. If it is right away, it's then a really big problem, but it's going to be like 5-6 years down the line. And it's not even going to be, more likely than not, the original homeowner. Like, they're going to have sold it. It's going to be somebody else's problem after that without him knowing it.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times these water penetration, failures, issues happen sooner than later, right? Like we get a good heavy storm that comes through, it can show up after 2, 3, 4 years. It doesn't have to be 10 or 15 years down the road. So, and in that case, like that could still fall under your warranty and your liability as a builder. So why would you not take that extra time up front to go ahead and give yourself a little risk mitigation?
That's exactly what it is. It's just risk mitigation. If you want to like really boil it down, as a builder, that's all we do essentially is we assume liability and risk on behalf of others. So we assume liability and risk, at least in our market, because most of us are purely general contractors. So we're assuming liability and risk on behalf of the client and the product that we're delivering. And then we're also assuming that liability on behalf of our subcontractors and the work that they're performing. So to not follow up and verify that with some kind of measurable data driven point, whether it be I sprayed this window for 15 minutes, verified with the thermal camera that it's not leaking, check that box, move on to the next one, something along those lines, just to basically CYA yourself down the line as a builder, strictly from a liability warranty standpoint, is a no-brainer to me.
Yeah.
And you get a better product out of it ultimately.
Absolutely. I think one of the issues related to that as well is I've mentioned this many times in the past on this podcast. So many builders don't really know the right way to do it themselves, and so they rely on their trades to know how to do it. So then if the trade doesn't know how to do it, it kind of snowballs, right? So like you can buy the latest and greatest product, but if your trade partner, subcontractor who's installing it doesn't know what to do with it, it's worthless, right? And so a lot of those people learned the same way a lot of builders did. The framers and they learned to install window from their cousin who they learned framing from, and right. And so it's like perpetuating, old methods, incorrect, install methods, but then compounded with either the builder, the owner of the company, or the project manager, superintendent. They don't know the right way that it was supposed to be done, so they don't even know how to check it.
Yeah,
right.
That's and again, it just goes back to expectation setting across all parties. What's that expectation you're setting with the client on the product you're going to deliver, and then you need to make sure that expectation is clear across your team, and then kind of like the extreme ownership, like Jocko Willink version of things, it's your responsibility as the builder to make sure that all parties are understanding clear as day what is going on. Like my biggest thing when I talk with clients, you'll never ever hear me, oh, they just did that because that's what they do, or it's their fault. If anything goes any kind of way, it's because I didn't set that expectation or clearly communicate in a manner that is understood of the work that we're expecting. So it's exactly like you said, they're just going to do it how they've always done it, but how they always have done it might not always be the way it should be done to begin with. And some of the latest and greatest products don't apply in the field sometimes. Like whenever I'm looking at a new product to use, I look at it from a standpoint of what product gives us the best chance of success, right? Because the best product is the one that's the best installed, and it's only as good as it's installed. So some of them, they're like these insane details where I'm like, that's just not practical from a time standpoint, or like who in our market area is going to do that? That's going to be, relatively cost effective or fair, basically. So there's a lot of products out there that are in that medium area, and that's kind of what we're always chasing, is what I call, like from the economics term, the line of like diminishing marginal returns, like dollars spent versus return gained, and we're trying to like get right at the peak of that with all things that we're doing. And a big part of that is like who's doing it and how they're going to do it. So there's some cool details out there for sure that just don't make sense to do in reality, at least in our market area.
Yeah. I mean, there is a lot of good training available by the vendors oftentimes, which builders don't always take advantage of, especially when it comes to new products. A lot of times the sales team, the support team from the vendor is perfectly willing to come out and show you how to do it in the field. Have a training with your installer in the field, but I think oftentimes builders don't take advantage of that free service. It's like, there's free training, just call the vendor to come out and show you how to do it, right?
Yeah.
But again, it takes time and effort and whatever. But
yeah, and there's that acronym like RTFM, which is like read the manual. And I would say that most builders don't even crack open the manual of the product that they're installing, and yet they're supposed to be the one that's guaranteeing that it's installed correctly. So even if you did get in a tight spot where like you have a building failure and it's related to a product, that manufacturer could very easily be like, here's reference to our manual that this is not installed correctly.
Well, and sometimes, the manufacturers realize this, and sometimes now on certain products, they even print the instructions right there on the product, right?
Yeah, and they're still not followed.
It's like your subfloor, like the Advantech subfloor, the zip sheathing. It's got the freaking nailing pattern or the screw pattern printed on the material.
Yep.
All you got to do is follow it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But if you don't know what those little dots and diamonds mean,
that's correct.
You're like, oh, I don't know what that is, right?
Yeah, because you didn't even bother to like research the product. You're just like, oh yeah, this is what all the cool guys are using, so let me use it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd probably say like the majority of like building paper type products, I'd be hard pressed to find one that you can just staple on, and almost all of them are installed with just staples. So that alone right there, like instantly voids the warranty on your like most important thing, you know, keep water out. That's kind of the number one job as a builder, and then everything else is kind of ancillary after that. So just read the manual of the product that you're using, and then in turn you can lean on these manufacturer reps. Like Huber has a great rep in our area, Jim Klein. He's more than willing to help and assist in any kind of way that he can. Do on-site trainings if possible. Like they have people for this, like they're giant corporations most of the time, so they have the bandwidth to support you, the local guy, and it's just not utilized. So if they're not reading the manual, they're definitely not reaching out to the manufacturer.
Yeah, and we've had the reps from Tamlin come out many times on our job sites. You know, whether it's their drainable wrap or their rain screen product or their flashing tapes or whatever, just pick up the phone. They're 15 minutes, 20 minutes away from me here. They'll come out and come to a job site. They're happy to teach, to show, because they want their stuff to perform the way it's supposed to perform, because it reflects well on them, right?
Yeah.
They don't want failures with their product name on it. Yeah,
there's a reason why they have their name like printed all the way across it, but it's just like majority of the time it's just not installed the way that they ask for it to be installed.
Yeah, it's funny when a lot of the guys love to use like the various tapes and a bunch of different applications that'll have like the company name on it, right? And so when I see like the Tamlin tape being used in some totally incorrect manner, I'll text a picture of it to the guys at Tamlin and be like, hey, look what I just saw.
Yeah.
And they'll say, hey, what address is that? I want to go by and tell them how to fix it and how to do it right. So they care. Like even if they weren't helping that builder on that project, if they see their product being used wrong, they're like, boom, I want to go make sure that's done right, because my company's name is on that thing.
For sure. And then again, like as a builder, all you're doing is assuming risk and liability. So the more you can spread that out, whether it be engineers or manufacturers, you're like, I installed this per the specs that you prescribed, so I should be getting whatever warranty that you're claiming for this product along with it to help spread that liability out. So when you do have a failure, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, that you also are as protected and covered as you can be by dragging whoever else you can involved by just doing it the right way, basically.
So on the lines of subcontractors, trade partners, you get what you pay for. And so if we want our houses to perform better, we need trade partners who are capable of doing the work. And sometimes that just means that you need to upgrade your subs, right? Like certain subs are only going to get you to a certain point, and then you either need to upgrade and get a better quality sub to do that work, or you've got to invest in their training, invest in their education to bring them up to the level that you want them to be at. Right? Yeah.
I kind of leaned more on the training side of things too, which is tough too whenever you have to like let a sub go, because you're like, I just spent so much time on bringing this guy up, because I've found oftentimes that just because the guy's more expensive doesn't necessarily mean they know what they're doing any better. They just have done it the same way always, which was slightly better, but typically the details that I'm asking them to do are going to be slightly different. Like we're using stretch tape on the corners and flashing all the windows before we install the window, things of that nature. And if I had a super expensive framer or an inexpensive framer, like they wouldn't necessarily do that type of detailing, whether or not unless I specifically instructed them and told them how to do it. So I do use like my youth and my ability to move around to my advantage at times, to where I'm like, let's do the first one together. And maybe I put the tools on because it's all about clear communication. So if words aren't getting the job done with the language barrier or what have you, then you need to show with your hands or have somebody there to do a demonstration. So that way it's clear and obvious what we're trying to achieve here with like a visual representation, whether it be a mock-up or you just do the first couple together, because if they're doing it wrong, it's your fault as the builder.
Yeah. We've done that many times. Say, hey, framer, window installer, we're going to install these first couple windows with you.
Yep.
We're going to show you how we want it done. We're going to watch you do one, and then we're going to let you do the others, but we're going to check it, right? And
yeah, and then we're going to spray it with water in 15 minutes.
Trust but verify.
Yeah.
It seems like, at least from the people that I've talked to and that I've observed, it seems like northern U.S. Framing crews, a lot of the trades are like a little more like craft oriented. Like a lot of those guys seem to care a lot more about their craftsmanship, right? I was at the IBS, the International Builder Show, last week, and I was watching a framing demonstration that they were doing in this one area. And these two guys that were doing this framing, I mean, like every single cut was perfect. And they were sitting there with their calculators calculating every single angle, down to the half degree, right? I mean, it was, they took pride in their work, and there was obviously a lot of craftsmanship there. And I feel that's something that's really kind of lacking in our market. I think we're just in such of a turn and burn market that's missed.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. It's like, it's almost missed intentionally to keep costs down, because that's what the market demands, right? If the market demanded a house that was framed like where it looked like it was done by trim carpenters, essentially, is the best way to equate it, where like everything's perfectly cut, super tight miters and all that, then we would deliver that. But our market in particular, demands speed and volume and size for the most part. I would say it's mostly market driven, but then again, it's also just a lack of education from those that are driving the market. If we set the trend of like, this is what it should be, then it will shortly follow after.
Yeah. So let's move into kind of a cost discussion a little bit then. I mean, homes are obviously costing more to build today than they did yesterday. It's just natural. Things cost more constantly, right? But it's not just inflation. It's not just time, right? It's also even code, and I hate to use the word build to code, because that's a whole nother discussion that we'll touch on in a second here. But energy code, for example, just some of that dictates that we build better enclosures, that we use better products. Those products cost more money, right? How do you sell that to a customer? How do you sell, hey, to build this house right, it just costs more?
Yeah, so it is definitely a challenge, and one like marketing based decision that I've made to do that and help with that sell is to be cost plus. So just as transparent as possible, and showing them and then proving to them what everything costs by literally showing all the receipts for everything. So that from a just purely business standpoint is one way to do it. And then from an overall performance standpoint, you equate it to any technology, right? The construction technology like loop, or however you want to describe it, is very slow, whereas like your other typical technologies is super rapid. You wouldn't want to use a cell phone from 20 years ago. Why would you want a house built the same way 20 years ago? The advancements in technology are constant and continuous, and then just overall what we ask of our structures should be more and is more today. So that's part of a big reason of like those cost drivers. Like, I mean, everything has every advancement of technology is going to cost more than the previous iteration. So some of it is driven by code, like by code, you're having to push the technology forward of the house. So that advancement of technology is just going to cost more. And it sounds silly to say technology because we're talking about like sticks and bricks, but it still is at the end of the day, ultimately.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of technology that just goes into hard materials.
Yeah. How it's fabricated and the manufacture of it, all of it, that's all technology progression over time.
Yeah. So, people have a hard time sometimes paying for or mentally being okay with paying for this stuff because it's all behind the walls, or most of it's behind the walls. They're not seeing it. They can't touch it and feel it. It's not the sexy stuff, right? People want to spend money on the bells and whistles inside the house and the beautiful finishes and things like that. So it's how we communicate that, like that stuff is obviously important. It's what you see every day, but this other stuff is equally as important because it's protecting your investment that you're spending all this money on, but it's also like the health and wellness of your family as well, right? If that wall's not drying, you get mold in that wall, it's in your kid's bedroom, your kid's going to get sick. And what is that,
Yeah.
So it's being able to kind of sell that as a feature of the home. It's like you're paying for better design, you're paying for better execution, and because of the testing, you're paying for proof that it works. That's too, correct. Right?
Yeah. I think like one of the worst marketing strategies that builders have in the maybe like the government EPA was the Energy Star program, especially in our market like Houston. Majority of our clientele would probably prefer that we use more energy because it's better for their overall livelihood. So if the EPA branded it more along the lines of like what I initially said, health, comfort, and durability, and we had like tangibles and metrics to follow for that, because a lot of that Energy Star program is testing and verifying things directly related to health, comfort, and durability. And a byproduct of those things is that your house ultimately uses less energy. So I don't know why as an industry we kind of set our sights on like, oh yeah, more energy efficient, when that's for the most part, except if you're like in a very niche market on the East Coast, is the least of people's concerns, because here in our market, it's not uncommon and to have like a $600 plus energy bill, and honestly most people would probably prefer to have that because that means that their job is secured.
Well, I think people like the idea of, hey, we're using energy because it supports the economy, but I think at the end of the day, I don't know that people like want to they don't want to pay more on their on their electric bill, right?
Yeah.
I mean, EPA at least did make some changes where it's not just Energy Star, which is now, I think, I'm not sure if it's gotten brought back, but it got killed. It got killed by the current administration. But they also had the Indoor Air Quality Plus, the IQ Plus, or something like that. So they did start recognizing that it's not just energy; it is also this other stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's a good shift, but it's just so hard to consume because it's like just a bunch of mumbo jumbo. Like even the word IAEQ or whatever, indoor air quality, this term for it is. Who knows what that means on the streets?
Yeah.
So but if you talk about like this piece of equipment is making sure that when your kid's sleeping in this bedroom at night, they're getting fresh air that's within this certain tolerance of CO2, PM 2.5, and what that does and has the actual like physical effects on your body, your brain, your development for children is astronomical, because it's you spend like, I don't even know what the statistic is, but it's more than 50% of your time within your home. So that's where establishing a healthy environment is really important and worth the investment.
Yeah.
And that's how it needs to be sold. Not just like, oh, this is all the cool and latest, greatest technology. It's like, what is the actual result of it? It's like, okay, we're trying to get you the healthiest possible environment for the thing that you spend the majority of your time in.
Yeah, I mean, there's a product that Panasonic has that it's called the Whisper Air Repair. It's just a little spot air purification device. And when they came out, I was talking to my Panasonic guy, and I was like, "Does this thing really work? Is this?" And he's like, "Hey, I'll send you some, right? I'll send you a few, try them out, see what you think, right?" And I installed one in each of my kids' bedrooms. And a couple of them has some pretty bad allergies, and that thing made a huge difference.
Yeah.
In their allergies, just having that in their room, right? And so now I use that story when I'm talking to my clients about things that we can do to improve their air quality, products that we could use, and I mention it and I say, hey, I put these in my house. My kids' allergies are doing better. They're like, okay, let's do it. Yeah, it's like, I don't know what they are now. They're called $125, right?
Yeah.
Would you spend $125 for your kid to have less of an allergy problem?
For sure, without a doubt. Yeah.
All day long. Okay, let's do it, right?
Yes.
If you put it in terms like that, it's a much easier buy-in than using technical mumbo jumbo and words that people don't know what they mean.
It's common sense at that point too. It stops being like such a crazy math problem to where it's like, oh, that's the logical option. We should definitely do that with the technology that's available.
Yeah. So again, it's hard. It's sometimes it can be a hard discussion because everybody has a budget. Like if your bank approves you for 1.2 million, you can't just jump to 1.5. It's like, you might be able to flex to 1.25, right? But you're not going to jump $300,000. The average person can't, right? Some people can. So there has to be some give and take in the budget. And so that's when those discussions with clients get to be tough, where it's like, hey, your house is costing this much, but a lot of that is in the stuff that you're not going to see, which means you're not going to get some of those finishes that you want, right? But the stuff that you don't see, the stuff that goes in the walls, the stuff that we're talking about, once it's there, it's there. It's going to be there for the next.
I call those like the forever details.
Yeah, decades, right? Whereas the countertops, the tile, the appliances, the little bells and whistles, motorized shades, whatever it is that they're interested in doing, it's stuff that it's either going to wear out or break in 5 years, or it's going to need to be replaced in 5 to 10 years because the style changes, or it's something that just can be added down the road when you have some extra cash, right?
Correct. That's why like pre-construction services in general is such an important thing, because you need to be asking questions like that, like what health concerns do you have? Problems with allergies? Do you have kids that have certain medical needs? Maybe you yourself have particular medicals, because then it's like, okay, now we know as like, quote, industry experts, at least what I try to be is somebody that's educated and aware, what recommendations that we can prescribe to them to achieve the best possible structure that they can afford, and a lot of times that conversation is like, we need to do less square footage because these metrics are something that's very important to you, whether it be like indoor air quality, just like things of that nature that are along the lines based on what they initially told you. If they're like, I don't care what the house is, like I want to build the biggest possible thing I can afford, and it's like, okay, then like let's shift and be flexible to that. And if you can't do that, then you're not a custom builder at the end of the day.
Yeah. I think one issue that I've seen around pricing is that the whole cost per square foot thing, which drives me freaking crazy. When people are comparing, at least on the phone or just doing some research on builders, right? And they're calling builder A, and builder A is like, oh yeah, we build for $300 a square foot. And builder B is like, oh, our houses generally start at $350 or $400 a square foot, right? Again, I hate that metric. It's a terrible way to approach any project. But builder A at $300 a foot, like his base product is probably not going to be on the same level, right? Like so you might be getting wax coated cardboard sheathing wrapped in builder's paper, for that price, right? Whereas builder B might be installing, a zip system with taped joints and liquid applied flashing and heat pump AC. I mean, doing all the right things, right? But when you go to builder A and go for that lower price point, number one, you're not going to get the performance, but number two, there could be like a bait and switch situation where they're like, hey, our base house is this for $300 a foot, but if you pay this much more, we can get you the zip. This much more, we can get you the high performance air conditioning system. This much more, we can get you these other features, right? And before you know it, the prices really aren't that different. If they'd have just kind of asked those questions up front instead of using this vague cost per square foot metric to compare things.
It's even worse in my area too, because like we have to put in utilities, right? If we're building on acreage, if we're putting in a well, septic, and we're burying a propane tank, are you
$50,000?
Are you counting that into, like, in our driveways like a mile long? Are we counting that in your cost per square foot, or like how are we breaking that down? What kind of site work is related to it? Because more often than not, we're not building on a flat lot.
Clearing trees.
Yeah, clearing trees or bringing in 200 dump truck loads worth of dirt. Like that's a big difference in cost. So again, it just goes back to the importance of like pre-construction planning. And then on the client side, the best possible thing they could do is help set those expectations of what they're expecting to get, because it baffles me how people get caught up with these other builders that are doing subpar work and they act surprised after they've already gotten into it. Because I'm like, what kind of expectation in writing on paper did y'all both agree upon? Not just like a conversation over a phone call or in person, even worse. So it needs to be metrics that are set and hit so the expectations are clear across all parties.
Yep. I wanted to shift and talk about a few, we'll call them old school home building myths. And some of these I'm sure that you've heard. I'll start saying it and you can probably spout off the rest of the sentence, right?
Yeah.
But talk about the myth and then what the replacement for that myth should be. What's the correct way of approaching it, right? So houses need to
Breathe.
breathe, right?
Yeah, so houses need to breathe. What they really meant, or at least what I hope they really meant, is that houses need to dry. And in our market, we dry to the inside because we're a cooling dominated market, which is good and bad because heat energy moves from hot to cold. So that basically means our hot, humid air from the outside is trying to push in. So by building a tight enclosure, we try to keep majority of that out. And then on even simpler terms, we need to give bulk water a place to go. So whether that be spacing our claddings off of our now modern moisture sensitive materials such as OSBs, or even like the zip sheathing that has a resin applied to it, that's a little bit better of a product than a just plain OSB. We need to give that water a place to go and then give it the ability to dry. So that goes on both directions. That is often missed too. Like maybe somebody will use a rain screen on a product and to give it that ability to drain out, but they forget that air needs to flow upwards and escape somewhere at the top. So when people say houses need to breathe, at least I hope what they mean is that houses need to dry. And especially like on older homes, and more northern climates in particular, like you're running that heater all day long, so it's like drying from the inside out.
Right.
But the invention of air conditioning like 50 years ago has flipped all that upside down, especially in our hot humid market, to where if you want to run air conditioning, you need to be trying to keep as much as that moisture out of your assembly. And then when you do get these bulk water events like we do in particular, like we get more rain here than like Portland, Oregon does. We just get it in like 3-4 inches at a time. So it's a significant amount of bulk water. We need to give that bulk water a place to go by making sure that it can drain out and then also dry out by spacing our claddings off of our moisture sensitive materials.
Yeah. So houses need to dry, and we should dictate how the house is going to dry, right?
Correct.
So that's the kind of the switch around to that myth. I will say that a lot of 1950s houses, you can actually feel them breathe.
For sure.
A lot of older houses, you can feel them breathe. That's what a draft is, right?
Yes.
People say this house is drafty. Well, that's air moving in and out of the structure.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, modern houses too, like, quote, I guess, code built house. That's totally fine. Like with no detailing from the baseboard back to the foundation, like you're going to get a draft there. If you felt it like in this super cold time that we just had, like there's air literally running out of your house in between your baseboard and your foundation.
And oftentimes, like you can feel air moving around, like a
outlet,
a switch plate cover, right? Put your hand in front of that, you can just slightly feel some air moving through there, right?
Yes, and then in our market, that's a very dangerous thing because we average like 70% relative humidity, and then when you take that and can turn it into a dew point at that percent humidity is around like 60 something degrees or something like that, and then you're throwing AC at 55 degrees out of the register. That's dew point right there, like majority of the time out of the year. So that's where you get moisture problems.
It's really interesting. One place that we often, when we get called to look at like a forensic issue on a house and try to figure out why people are seeing mold in weird places and things like that, we often see it around a lot of door jams, actually, like on a second floor door header
on an interior
wall, and they're like, why am I getting mold in the middle of my house over a door jam? And it's because they've got a header up there with a gap between the header, and there's a pathway for that hot, humid air from the unsealed attic to come down in between the 2x header, and it hits that cold air on the backside and starts condensing, right?
The top of the door case isn't like caulked back to the sheetrock, especially on a ventilated attic. Your air barrier is your sheetrock, so it kind of makes it simpler if you start thinking about it like that in terms of like chasing those forensic problems.
The good thing is that's just pretty easy to solve.
Yes.
Actually see that on. In fact, we signed a contract today on going in and fixing a house who was having this exact issue. They had that going on. They had a chase that was like behind an entertainment center in their game room, where the inside of the cabinet in their game room was getting moldy. Well, there was an unsealed HVAC chase right behind it coming out of the attic, and that was hitting the backside of that cool cabinet in the game room, and there's mold growing in there, right?
Yeah.
Easy fix, right? It's you go up in there, you seal that chase with some blue board, you insulate it, boom, problem solved. So it's not a hard fix, but it's something that people don't necessarily think about.
For sure.
All right. Myth number 2 is building code means the house is built to a certain quality standard.
Yeah. It is, but I think that's that expectation. If you're asking your house to do a lot, then maybe that house that is, while it's meeting all those codes, does not meet your expectation of quality. The things are unrelated. And then sometimes you may have like a really beautiful quality finish, but structurally it's compromised. So code is there to basically assure that your house is not going to harm you, whether it be fall down, electrocute you, etc. But it does not guarantee that your house is going to perform the way that you expect it to.
Right. Yeah. Code dictates, generally speaking, kind of the minimum standard that has to be met. But it doesn't always take into account all the different variables for different products and systems that are being used, right? Meeting code for one assembly might be fine, but that code may not be fine for a different type of assembly or a different type of system that's being used in the house.
Yeah, and it's starting to, I mean, it's a delay, and it's starting to catch up. Like even certain things like with modern day code for stucco that's rolling out is you have to have 2 layers of WRB, and in certain market areas, our market's very slow to adapt, but in certain market areas you have to have rain screens behind certain assemblies because of the like prolific failures that they've seen in these assemblies. So, but it's always going to be behind the curve, as any government agency is.
Well, it's often reactive.
Yeah,
right?
it's 100% reactive.
It's kind of like laws are passed because something happened,
Correct.
right? That needs to be corrected.
And sometimes they don't make sense because it's like a small handful of cases, like the island outlet plugs. Like they got rid of that because there's like a select number of cases of people getting scalded from pulling it off. But it's like, would that have happened otherwise? Probably, but you can directly correlate it back to that thing. So code said, get rid of it.
Exactly. All right. Next myth is your HVAC system will solve your comfort issues in the home.
Yeah. That's a big one. An HVAC system is a reactive system. It only does what it is reading and reacts to that. And how you establish that is with the enclosure. So majority of AC problems are enclosure related for the most part. You can have the best HVAC system in the world, but if you have a terrible enclosure, it's not going to do anything for you. I've actually had my AC guys reach out to me because they were having problems with a house that I did not build. The owner actually built it themselves, and they could not get the house to cool or stay like under 60% humidity. So you set up a blower door and find out very quickly that like when your house is at 20 ACH 50, you're trying to condition the entire earth, and that will just never happen.
Yeah.
And when you have a harsh environment like what we do, the problems get serious. But it's easy to think, oh yeah, let me just blame the AC because that's the obvious one. But all it does is react to temperature controls. It's literally, is the temperature inside where the sensor is this number or not, and then it does where the heater cools
on off. Yeah. I mean, the AC system is just one component of an overall system. Thinking of the house as a total system, right? It's just one component of it.
That's correct.
The enclosure sets the tone. The AC is one tool or one component of that system, along with hopefully dehumidifier, ERV, whatever other technology that you're using in that home. So.
Yeah, and that's why like a lot of times in our market in particular, like code required fresh air is quickly eliminated to help solve those issues, because if you're just purely bringing in fresh air, raw Houston fresh air, it's going to be extremely hard on your HVAC system, and you're going to raise the interior relative humidity, and you're going to be hitting dew point in a hurry on everywhere.
Mm-hmm. All right. Next one, I added this one at the last second because it popped in my head and I thought it was funny. Building science is just greeny-weeny politics. And I've actually heard this from the mouth of somebody who was teaching a class. He was an old school builder. He was teaching a class, and he's like, that building science is just greeny-weeny politics.
Yeah, I guess it can be to an extent, but I would argue it's more common sense than anything. It's just being aware of the technology that's available and implementing it in a way that makes sense to you. So a lot of these building science related things that like I talk about in particular, like a super simple one, like a rain screen. If you're like, hey, if we take this cladding, we put it right up against this piece of OSB that everybody understands is highly moisture sensitive, it will have problems. Or we can give it a gap to give the water a place to go. That's a building science thing, but it's like the most obvious solution. So to me, building science is just applying obvious solutions in a manner that makes sense to you in your market area.
Yeah.
So it's nothing, again, like the energy, whatever, environmental, carbon, that stuff is well above what I can comprehend or even want to comprehend. So I mainly just focus on like what's going to allow me to build the most healthy, comfortable, durable structure I can. And a lot of building science fits within that window.
Building science is not politics. It's physics. I mean,
it's physics. Exactly.
Most of it is literally physics at work. It's temperature differentials, moisture movement, pressure.
Yeah.
That's what most of it is.
It's very, very simple physics. Things move from more to less. Things move from hot to cold. Gravity pulls things down. Sometimes water wicks up, but that's like the only time you're like, maybe that's a little bit confusing.
Yeah.
But
when people are selecting a builder, going back to builder customer conversations, if the builder can't explain some of this stuff, if they can't explain how the home is going to dry, if they can't explain what goes into the comfort of a home, I think the homeowners are taking a gamble with their investment of their large amount of hard-earned money.
Yeah, and I think that's a big challenge as an industry, and it's kind of on us as a collective, whether it be GHBA or other building groups, to like help raise that standard and stop being such yes men. So that way the client starts to ask those questions. If a client came to me and was like, hey, I'm thinking about building a house in this area, what's your strategy for like water management or like dehumidification? I would get so excited, but never once has that happened. They go, what's your cost per square foot? And like, let me see a house so I can see one of your finishes and how that all comes together. But I obviously have made a career out of it. That's the approach that I would have to it. So, but I think there is a trend coming, but again, it's very reactive. People are asking those questions, but they've only are asking them because they've had like catastrophic failures in the past, whether it be like their entire house is full of mold, or they had a shower that leaked like for years on years and made them sick. And now they have some issue along those lines, or they have a kid that has unique health circumstances where indoor air quality is really important. But again, it's all reactive. It's not very much proactive. And then when majority of the time, like when they're interviewing somebody, it's very much so cost driven, and our perception of what a house should cost is too low.
Absolutely. What are the biggest opportunities that you see for improvement on most projects? So most custom home projects, where, I guess another way to say that is, where are most builders missing the mark?
I think a simple one would be the giving bulk water a place to go would solve a lot of problems, especially on like stucco assemblies. Giving water a place to go, and then slowing down at a point to where you can make repairs, and then testing things to figure out if you do need to make repairs, rather than just rolling straight from one thing into the other and covering it up and getting it done as fast as possible. Just take that like day or two, just take a breather and like test things and fix them as needed at a stage that you can where it's not catastrophic. So if you could just add like 2-3 days to your schedule, a day before, a day after drying and all mechanicals are done, to do some testing and do some small fixes, like add that to your schedule, and then do some other verifications throughout. Just add a couple days throughout the build process, which ultimately doesn't make a big difference, will make a huge difference in the liability. And for me, it helps how I sleep at night too. Cause like every builder gets nervous when it rains, but why is that? Because you don't know for certain whether or not your assembly is working. But if you did know for certain, you should.
So that actually leads perfectly into my next question, and I didn't even tell you what these questions are. So what is your definition of being done before you cover up the walls on the inside with drywall? What are for you the key things that you're checking? When can you say, okay, this is done, we can cover it up?
Yeah, so sequentially, I like to have all mechanicals and essentially all penetrations through the envelope completed prior to cover. So that means like no siding is installed prior to mechanicals being completed to make sure that they're flashed back to whatever point we're establishing as the outermost point of the envelope, which would be your WRB or one layer of it. Um, have all that completed and then tested it to a certain whatever our goal is for that project in terms of air tightness. Air tightness is the easy one because if you're keeping air out, you're also keeping water out for the most part, especially like bulk water. Because if you have like a large hole, you will be very leaky in terms of air tightness, and you will also let in and leak water. So that's an easy one to test prior to mechanicals, and ideally too, we finish the exterior prior to the interior being covered, and that's purely from like an experience standpoint of like I've had siding people nail a water line and flood sheetrock and things like that. So I would say all penetrations are checked and addressed, then we're done, we're ready to start covering.
Awesome. As we kind of close this thing out, I want to kind of end with kind of a challenge, I guess, to builders, and then also kind of some advice for our customers, our homeowners that might be listening. So for builders, like, you know, you've mentioned testing, some of the things that you just touched on too. How would you challenge custom home builders to do better?
Yeah, I would say just start asking yourself questions. Like when you look at that window install, be like, do I know for certain that that window is not going to leak whenever we have 5 inches of rain and 30-mile-per-hour winds? Maybe we should spray it with some water. Ask questions and assume nothing. So if you're assuming that something is done correctly, you're probably wrong. You need to know that for certain that it's done to whatever standard you're setting it to be. And then don't be afraid to go out on a limb and ask other people questions or just buy some equipment yourself. It's a small investment that if you train yourself on it, it's going to be well worth it in the long run. Like a good blower door kit's like $5,000 something dollars, which sounds like a lot, but if you're routinely bringing out a Raider to just set up and move on, you would have paid for that equipment after 2, 3 houses.
Yeah, exactly. On the customer side, what are some? I guess same thing. Like, what are some challenges to a homeowner that you might give?
Yeah. Ask more questions. Don't take anything on face value. If something seems too good to be true, then more than likely it's not. You should be asking questions like, what is your plan here? Other than like, what is your cost to get to this finished thing? What is your plan for insulation, any number of things? Just ask those questions, and it's always going to be something unique. Every house is a one of one, so if you're doing the same repeatable whatever it is, that shouldn't be the case because you're not building the same thing ever. Even if you took the same exact floor plan and shifted it over 30 feet to the right, soils types different. So you need to ask more questions about like, what is your plan, and or how are you going to achieve what I want achieved out of it, and be more transparent up front with what your expectations are of the end result. Like, do you like to sleep with it at 68 degrees inside or 66 degrees? Because that makes a big difference on how you set up the house overall, and that ultimately drives costs as well. So be more transparent about what your end result expectations are, and or health needs, and put the wants kind of on the end of it after you've established all the things that are most important to you, outside of, you know, like countertops or whatever, things of that nature that can be replaced. I always tell people like we need to focus on the forever details, and then if you want to, I can come out here every other week and change these countertops, change these light fixtures out, and it would have no effect on like your overall well-being. It'd be annoying that I'm in your house, but if I have to come in and like tear out a window, that's a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a fun chat. Tell everybody how to find you and Kingsmen Homes if they want to chat about building.
Yeah, the biggest one is Kingsman Homes LLC on Instagram. It's spelled KINGSMEN Homes LLC on Instagram. Facebook, I have some YouTube channel as well that I tried to frequently post on to do a little bit longer format content. Things of the nature that we talked about here today. Instagram is the biggest one that we're active on, and then you can just come see me out west if y'all want to. In Lawson County, I'm always running around, so that's about the best places to find me.
Awesome. We will definitely link your website and your Instagram and all that stuff on the show notes on YouTube and Instagram ourselves, so they can find you. And but thank you so much for coming today. It's been a great chat, and thank you for joining us this year on the GHBA.
Yeah, it's been an honor.
CBC board. I'm excited to have you on there contributing with us and have some fresh perspective, have some young blood.
Yeah.
So we're excited.
Definitely got that.
So, all right. Well, thank all of you for listening and watching the Your Project Shepherd podcast. I hope that you took something away from my discussion with Matthew Davis today. We'll see you next time. Take care.